On the morning of October 4, 2025, the quiet beauty of Jeremy Cay, nestled along the marshes of Edisto Beach, South Carolina, was shattered in an instant. What began as a serene golden sunrise over the coastal neighborhood quickly turned into a scene of chaos and fear, forever altering the lives of its residents. Judge Diane Goodstein, a respected figure in the community, was out for her usual morning walk with her dogs. Unbeknownst to her, this simple routine would save her life. Just moments after she left her $1.55 million marshfront home, a sudden violent explosion tore through the property, sending shockwaves through the neighborhood. Within minutes, flames devoured the house, leaping high into the sky and producing thick, black smoke visible for miles. The fire moved with terrifying speed, consuming everything in its path and transforming a peaceful Saturday morning into a desperate fight for survival. The home's secluded location, once a symbol of privacy and luxury, now became a deadly obstacle. First responders from the St. Paul's Fire District raced to the scene, but the winding, narrow roads and remote settings slowed their progress, making rescue efforts even more difficult and dangerous. Inside the burning home, Judge Goodstein's family found themselves trapped by the inferno. With exits blocked by flames and thick smoke filling every room, they faced a nightmare scenario, one where every second counted and escape seemed impossible. The peaceful community was thrown into turmoil. Sirens echoed through the streets, neighbors rushed from their homes in disbelief, and panic spread as the fire raged on, consuming not just a house, but a sense of safety and normalcy. In the days leading up to the fire, Judge Goodstein had presided over a high-profile, politically charged case that drew national attention. As news of the blaze broke, speculation swirled. Was this a tragic accident or something more sinister? The timing fueled immediate suspicion and fear. The destruction of her home was not just a personal loss for Judge Goodstein and her family. It quickly became a symbol of the nation's volatile political climate, raising questions about safety, justice, and the cost of public service in a divided America. In the aftermath, the shockwaves rippled far beyond Edisto Beach. Residents, officials, and people across the country were left grappling with fear, uncertainty, and a growing sense that no place, no matter how peaceful, was truly safe from the storms of our times. As the fire raged, the night was pierced by sirens and the frantic shouts of neighbors. Flames devoured the home with terrifying speed, leaving little time for escape or rescue. The air was thick with smoke, and the heat was unbearable, making every second a desperate fight for survival. Inside, 3 of Judge Goodstein's family members, including her husband Arnold, 81, were trapped by the inferno. The family, who had gathered for what should have been a peaceful evening, suddenly found themselves facing a nightmare. With no safe exit, they were forced to leap from windows and balconies, risking everything to escape the flames. The fall left them with severe injuries, broken legs, traumatic wounds, and emotional scars that would last a lifetime. The chaos and terror of those moments would haunt them forever. Their survival was nothing short of miraculous, but the cost was immense. The family was left physically battered and emotionally shattered, struggling to comprehend the devastation that had just unfolded. The marshy terrain behind the house, usually just a quiet backdrop, became a deadly obstacle. It made traditional rescue efforts impossible, trapping the injured and complicating every attempt to reach them. Firefighters, thinking quickly, improvised by using kayaks to reach the injured. They paddled through thick mud and rising water, risking their own safety to bring the family to safety. Their determination and resourcefulness saved lives that night. Arnold Goodstein was airlifted to a trauma center in Charleston, his injuries too severe for local treatment. Other family members were rushed by ambulance to nearby hospitals, their conditions critical but stable. The family lost their home, their possessions, and the sense of security they once knew. Ahead of them lay a long, painful recovery, physically, emotionally, and financially. In the days that followed, the focus shifted from the blaze itself to the hospital, where the true toll of the disaster became heartbreakingly clear. The family faced surgeries, rehabilitation, and the daunting task of rebuilding their lives. The community rallied around them, offering support, prayers, and comfort. Vigils were held, meals were delivered, and neighbors came together in solidarity. Yet, even with this outpouring of compassion, the psychological trauma lingered. The fire's human cost was immediate, devastating, and deeply personal. For the Goodstein family, and for all who witnessed the tragedy, The scars, both visible and invisible, would remain long after the flames were extinguished. As the smoke cleared, the true extent of the devastation became apparent. The once vibrant home was now reduced to a skeletal frame, charred and lifeless. Investigators from SLED, the South Carolina Law Enforcement Division, arrived promptly to determine the fire's cause. Was it a tragic accident or a calculated act of arson? The stakes were high. This was no ordinary house fire. The property belonged to a prominent local figure, adding layers of complexity to the investigation. SLED combed the ruins meticulously, searching for any clues that could explain the blaze. They looked for signs of electrical faults, gas leaks, or any other accidental causes. But they also had to consider more sinister possibilities, evidence of foul play like accelerants or explosives that could indicate arson. A statement from Chief Justice John Kittredge, noting the fire began with an explosion, intensified suspicions of a deliberate attack. The community was on edge. While accidental explosions do happen, the context of this incident made arson a real possibility that could not be ignored. Officials remained tight-lipped about the cause, fueling rampant speculation and rumors among the public and media. The investigation's secrecy was standard procedure, but the political backdrop made every detail matter even more. The pressure was mounting. With Judge Goodstein's recent threats, the question of intent loomed large. Was this an act of retaliation or something else entirely? The state waited anxiously for answers buried in the ashes, hoping for clarity amidst the chaos and destruction. The fire followed weeks of escalating threats against Judge Goodstein. These were not idle words. State law enforcement took them seriously, increasing security and patrols around her home. The threats were direct responses to her judicial work, turning her public service into personal risk. Judges often face backlash, but the intensity here was alarming. The sequence, controversial ruling, threats, heightened security, then fire, suggested a chilling escalation. Investigators now viewed the blaze through the lens of possible retribution. The pattern was too stark to ignore. The line between words and violence had blurred. The threats began after Judge Goodstein's September 2025 ruling on voter privacy. The Trump administration's DOJ demanded South Carolina's full voter files, names, addresses, even social security digits. Judge Goodstein issued a temporary restraining order, blocking the release and prioritizing voter privacy. Her decision, a routine judicial check, drew fierce criticism from Washington, especially from Assistant Attorney General Harmeet Dillon. The backlash politicized her role, painting her as an obstacle to the administration's agenda. The state Supreme Court quickly reversed her order, but the damage was done. For a crucial moment, she stood alone against federal overreach. That stand made her a target in a toxic political climate. Judge Goodstein's case was part of a broader national battle over voting rights. President Trump's March 2025 executive order sought to build a federal database of voter information, claiming to prevent non-citizen voting. The DOJ demanded data from over 30 states, sparking bipartisan resistance over privacy and federal overreach. Critics warned the database could enable mass voter purges, disproportionately affecting marginalized groups. Lawsuits and threats against non-compliant officials followed. The administration's rhetoric fueled distrust in the electoral process. The South Carolina case was a microcosm of this national struggle. The fight over data was about more than privacy. It was about the future of American democracy. The fire and threats against Judge Goodstein unfolded amid a surge of hostile rhetoric targeting the judiciary. The Trump administration and allies routinely vilified judges who ruled against them, branding them as political enemies. This went beyond criticism. It was a campaign to delegitimize the courts. Judges were labeled activists, or even traitors, their impartiality questioned. Such language eroded public trust and emboldened extremists. The line between political speech and incitement blurred dangerously. For judges, the risk was no longer just professional, it was personal and physical. The attack on Judge Goodstein was a chilling manifestation of this toxic climate. If the fire is ruled arson, it marks a terrifying escalation, an attack not just on a family, but on the judiciary itself. Judges must rule without fear for their safety. Violence undermines the rule of law. Across the U.S., threats against judges are rising, mirroring political polarization. The Goodstein fire could set a dangerous precedent, normalizing violence as a political tool. Such acts threaten the foundation of democracy. Protecting judges is essential for justice and civil society. The incident is a stark warning. Political violence cannot become the norm. The integrity of the legal system depends on it. As the Goodstein family recovers, South Carolina and the nation await answers. SLED's investigation is scrutinizing every clue, from forensic evidence to digital threats. The central question, accident or arson, will shape the response and future protections for judges. The legal community braces for the outcome, knowing it could drive calls for greater security. The public demands truth, justice, and accountability. The hope is for recovery, clarity, and, if necessary, justice for those responsible. For now, the community watches and waits, determined not to let fear or violence define its future. The search for answers continues as the smoke finally begins to clear.